Awesome. Well, thank you guys for hopping on to this call for today for our Tuesday workshop. We do have a very special guest appearance today. You're about to hear from someone who knows exactly how to take an agency to the next level and beyond. He's a 4-time author, a Stevie Award winner, and a proven expert in helping agencies scale to 10 million plus valuation, all while creating more profit, more income, and more freedom. Today, he's going to break down what buyers 1,000% ask about when looking at your software and how to set your business up for a high value exit while still having fun along the way. Get ready for an incredible session. Please welcome Chris Martinez.
Woohoo. Awesome intro. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Good to meet you guys, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you, Robert Flores, for I don't know if it was fireworks?
Yeah.
Confetti or
something like that.
I like it. I'll take it. Awesome. So fire away, Oren, if you guys have any questions. I think that's kind of the best way to start.
Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing that we want to accomplish on this call is any ways that how you recommend for people using the software that both you and I use as well to help scale their business, help for the exit process, what resources that you use personally to help businesses and stuff like that would be wonderful.
So as Oren mentioned, my area of expertise currently is in the marketing agency space. And there's two sides to our business. We do management consulting. So marketing agencies come to us and they're at the $1 million to $10 million range, and they want to get a lot better. And they eventually want to set up the business to be sold for a lot of money. So we'll help them to do that. The other side of that is the mergers and acquisitions. So if they want to sell or they're ready to sell, we help them with that. If they are looking to buy, we can help with the acquisition side if that's part of their strategy for growth. But overall, the principles of what I do and what I teach are applicable to any industry. The multiples will be different based on what you do, but overall, the general principles are going to be the same. So just out of curiosity, is it possible that we can get some people just to kind of list out what industry they're in and like pop it into the chat? That will kind of give me a sense. The other thing is, like, in my professional career, I've done everything from being a paper boy when I was a little kid to working at Chuck E. Cheese to I worked in Fortune 500 sales. I worked in the tourism and travel industry. I've done a lot of different things. So I feel like that gives me an advantage in kind of understanding a lot of different types of businesses. So if it's possible, and I don't know, Oren or Jeff, if you guys can monitor the chat, I just want to see, okay, so staffing, okay, perfect. I worked for a staffing agency when I was in college. Actually, I was an employee. So I took a year off from college and I worked. Staffing as well, staffing and marketing. Okay, cool. So, well, that's good to know. So I'll try and relate this back towards any, or keep it a little general as well, so that it applies to pretty much any industry, including staffing, of course. I use Go High Level. I was just kind of back up. I was on Zoho for, close to 15 years, I think. It was great. They had a really good free program, and I learned how to use a CRM from a sales standpoint from being my 10 plus years in professional sales. So right out of college, I got a job working for a company called Pitney Bowes. If you remember back in the day, there was this thing called mail, and you would buy one of these postage machines and it would put a stamp on a letter. And then instead of having to go to the post office, you could use this little machine that they leased to you for an unbelievable amount of money. So it was interesting because, like, I sold something that nobody wanted. It was absolutely a commodity. They had an amazing sales training program. And so I did really well there. And that's essentially where I learned how to use a CRM. Now, this is the early 2000s. So like nothing was connected to the internet. It was very, very clunky by today's standards. But, it was really, really neat to have that kind of like viewpoint of a CRM back in 2003, 2004, 2005. So again, I use Go High Level now. We switched over last year. It was basically I went to their conference that they had in October, and I've been with Go High Level since 2000, I think. And I saw what they were doing. And part of me was like, they're just trying to do too much. Like they should just stick to what they're good at. And so I was like, I don't know about the CRM that they're putting together. Well, they rolled it out at the conference in October of last year, 2024. And I was like, holy crap. Like this is legit. This is a legitimate sales CRM where you can manage pipeline and see all the stats that you need and all that good stuff. And so immediately, because we already had it, I was like, let's get rid of Zoho. I'd always hated Zoho, by the way. Like it was just so hard to connect everything together. I was like, why is it so hard for my current customer list to just like port over easily into my email so that I can just email my current customers? Like that was one thing that drove me crazy with Zoho. It was impossible to do that. So we moved everything over to Go High Level. And over, the past, let's just call it 9 months, we've really, really customized our own sales CRM. And so, I mean, it's humming. Like we have all the data that we need to be able to make really, really good decisions. So I'm a huge advocate of that software. If you're not using it now, I would definitely recommend it. And for the price, like there's a lot of bang for the buck. I am not affiliated with Go High Level at all. I'm not an owner in Go High Level. Just think it's a really, really cool software. So let's just talk about specifically what I love about Go High Level, but also, any sales CRM, as long as it has this data, or it should have this data because that's kind of what it's for. When you go to sell the company, these are some of the things that they're definitely going to ask for. So to give you some context, when you sell a business, there's different stages. And depending on how big your business is, how complicated or complex it is, who your buyer is, how much you're going to sell it for, these different stages can take longer or shorter. So typically you're going to gather all your financial data. The financials are absolutely the number one thing that they're going to look at. That's the starting point. It's also the last thing that they're going to look at. They're going to look at trailing 3 years of financials. They might go back 4 or 5. If you get a really, really interested buyer and they're going to pay you a lot of money, it would be in your best interests to have those financials available. And so that'll be step one, is basically like, let's look at the financials and let's create a goal that we want to sell the company for. It is important that that goal is realistic. Different industries have different multiples that they pay. So I'll give you the marketing agency example just because that's the one I know the best. If your EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, is under $1 million, typically the valuation that you'll get for that company will be 2, 3, maybe 4x multiple of EBITDA. This is for marketing agencies. For if you're between $1 million and $2 million EBITDA, then you can expect 3, 4, maybe 5x multiple on EBITDA for the valuation of the company. If you're over 2 million, that's where we're looking at 5, 6, 7, maybe 8, maybe higher multiple of EBITDA. But that's typically what you're looking at. So if you have a marketing agency,
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What's EBITDA?
Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. Does everybody know that term, or do you want me to give you a very, very simplified?
Very simple. I mean, we know it, but there's a lot of people probably that don't.
Okay, so it's basically like after all the expenses are paid, after you're paid, after all the bills are paid, what is the profit that's left over before we pay taxes and depreciation and the loan amortization, stuff like that?
Exactly.
That's basically what it is.
So even though you might be a company that makes revenue $10 million, it's really this EBITDA that they're looking at, and it could be half of that, or it could be, and technically it could even be in the negatives.
Yeah, and this is why we really focus on the valuation of the company, because I know lots of people that brag about how they have this $10 million business, but then the profitability is nothing. So if they were to go to sell that company, it wouldn't be worth anything. So it's not a $10 million company. It might be a $10 million revenue company, but you could have a $50 million revenue company, and if your expenses are $51 million, like you're going bankrupt. So don't get really
thanks shares.
Don't get excited about somebody bragging about their revenue, right? Like that's an Instagram number where people will say this big number because they want to get all these like oohs and ahs from everybody. You don't know what the heck is going on behind the scenes. I know what the heck is going on behind the scenes, at least in my industry. And there are a lot of people out there that are saying that they're successful and making all this money. And I look at their numbers and I'm like, dude, this is a terrible business. Like, you do not know how to run a company and it'll never be sold. So yes, EBITDA is the thing that they're going to look at when valuing your company. So you as the business owner, seeing that your main job as the owner is to increase the value of the company. Like if there's one metric that you use to measure yourself. So like at the end of the year, like you're saying, did I do a good job this year? Your job is to increase the value of your company. That's it. If you didn't do that, you didn't do a good job last year. I'm very, very brutal about this. Like facts, not feelings. That's my thing. Factually, if you didn't increase the value of the company, guess what? You didn't do good this year. Like that's it. You had a losing season. It's okay. We can build on it. But let's be very, very honest about how you performed. Okay, so when you go to sell the company, first thing, we got to gather the financials. Next thing, you're going to create what's called, you're going to create your NDA. You're going to create a teaser, which is like a 1 or 2 page document that just kind of lists out the general facts about the company. It's not going to have your company name on it or anything like that. You'll have another thing that's called a SIM. It's a confidential information memorandum. This is a much bigger document. It can be, it could probably be 100 pages, but they're usually around 40 to 50 pages, and they give much more insight about the company. So basically, like, you'll send out the teaser to people that are interested in the business. Then if they're interested, they'll sign an NDA, and then you'll give them the SIM. If they're interested after they get the SIM, then they'll usually set up a management meeting. There's a lot of other things that go on behind the scenes. And eventually you can get to the point where there's an IOI, indication of interest. That is typically a range of what they are willing to pay you. If that range sounds interesting, you could then ask for an LOI, which will be a very specific number that they're willing to pay, as well as the structure of the deal or like the terms of the deal. Most of the time, they're going to give you cash plus an earnout. It really depends on the business, but if you have a bigger deal, they're going to give you cash, and then there'll be terms and like benchmarks that you have to hit to be able to get your earnout. So let's just use an example. Let's say somebody wants to buy your staffing company, and they're going to pay the value of the deal is $10 million. So the enterprise value, what they call the EV, is $10 million. But what they're going to pay you in cash now, once we like sign the paperwork and close the deal, they're going to give you $5 million in cash, which is great. But then for you to get the other $5 million, you're going to have to hit, $12 million in revenue by the end of 2026. And then you're going to have to hit 15 million in revenue by the end of 2027, for example. And each year you'll get 2.5 and then 2.5. There's all kinds of things that can be included in that earnout. There could be employee staff that are included in that earnout. So like everybody on the team that comes over, they have to stay for a year. If you don't get the earnout. There can be certain clients that have to stay for the year. If they don't, you don't get the earnout, right? So that's where there's a ton of negotiation as to what goes into that earnout. Go ahead, Oren.
Cool. Mr. Powell, didn't you just go through a buyout here recently? Could you give you an idea of how it went for you?
Sure. Just a yes.
rundown.
Well, that was a very, very poor example of what he's talking about. That was basically selling to my business partner because I want out.
Oh, I was referring
to
to the collection agency, but yeah, that one too. I guess that works.
To join you, and so I just I made it as easy for him as possible. We just made an agreement of X dollars per month for 2 years. But that was almost. That's what Chris would not want to hear, is a handshake deal practically.
Oh yeah,
between two partners.
Take you out the back and smack you around a little bit for doing that deal. So that isn't like, let me get through the best way to do it, and then we'll talk about what usually happens if you don't have your numbers in order, or if you want to get out or whatever. Actually, I was approached yesterday by somebody who needs to sell because there was a death in the family. So once you get the LOI and you guys agree to the LOI, and there's LOIs that can be exclusive or non-exclusive. In the marketing agency space, it's typically an exclusive LOI. You then have 90 days to do even more due diligence, and then the lawyers talk and the bankers talk, and then everything gets closed, and then hopefully you get that check. And then that's when you get the cash plus the earnout. That's the way that these bigger marketing agency deals go. That's the best way, in my opinion, because you basically get a guaranteed, multiple 7-figure plus check, and you can. Well, you're most likely going to have to work for the buyer for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe longer. And there will be a non-compete in there, but at least you get a nice little check, and eventually you'll be able to take a nice vacation. So that's the ideal way to do the deal. I'll walk you through how some people end up doing the deals. So as I mentioned, there was somebody that approached me yesterday. There was a death. One of the owners died, and so the family members that are still here, they're scrambling to try and get some money for the company. They want to sell it, and I don't think that any of them know how to run the business either. It was a multi-million-dollar a year revenue business. I'm still waiting on their financials, but in these types of deals where maybe you don't have good enough EBITDA where somebody's going to give you a good offer, or you're in a distressed situation, you're kind of at the mercy of the buyers, right? And so you're going to have one of two things happen. If you can't get the number that you're looking for, you can't find a buyer. One is you're just going to shut your doors and walk away. And that's the worst, especially if you've been working away at your business for a decade, 2 decades, sometimes longer. If you haven't set up, like, for example, like if you don't have good financials, or you've only focused on revenue and you need to sell the business, which is going to be valued on EBITDA, then the offer that you're going to get is probably not going to be good enough for you. And you might just decide, screw this, I'm just going to close everything down. It's just not worth it. The other option is that you're going to do a seller finance deal. Now, I don't like these deals and I'll walk you through exactly why. A seller finance deal can be 0 cash up front, or it can be a little bit of cash up front and then payments every single month. And in those deals, typically there's like an interest payment that will be collected at the end once everything is recouped. So over time, that can be okay. But what do you think happens if the person defaults on the loan?
Not a whole lot of recourse.
Well, who takes over?
Exactly.
You're right back. You're right back in it.
You see that a lot, actually.
Yep. You see that a lot.
But with baby boomers, and what they've done is they've let like their manager buy on terms from them, and then the manager doesn't know how to run a business. And next thing you know, the owner, the baby boomer owner, is right back in there thinking they're retired, and they're back in there, juggling plates again.
Yeah,
Yep.
And possibly even worse because they're trying to clean up a mess now.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say that usually the business is not running as good as when they sold it.
Yep.
And your reputation is still tied to that business.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't really like wipe your hands clean of that business because, you're still very much involved. And if it fails, then it's going to fall back on you. You could potentially still like just dump the business once that person fails, but most people don't want to do that. And so there's just a lot of risk on your side. Again, if you've been running this business for years, it makes a lot more sense to try and have that clean break where you get a massive check and you can ride off into the sunset. Does everybody agree on that? That's the better option. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yes.
So again, these principles apply to every business, but for the most part, my area of expertise is marketing agencies. So this, gentleman that I'll be speaking with tomorrow, that had the death of the owner and I mean, I have to look at their financials and be like, okay, what do you guys want to get for it? And then I'll tell you what I think it's worth and what we can get. And also the time, right? So like, do they want to sell this thing in 30 days? If you're going to sell it in 30 days, guess what? You're not going to get as good of a price as you would get if we followed all the proper steps and like did a proper teaser and the proper sim and like, all that good stuff. If we were able to reach out to our buyers, I mean, like those situations, those sharks definitely smell blood in the water. They are not going to give you a good deal. They know that you're up against a rock and a hard place, and they're going to squeeze you for every freaking penny that they can. So, it's better to have your business set up for an exit where you can get paid a lot of money now when you don't need to, than at the very last minute, you have to scramble. Right. And what's worse, and I hate to be morbid here, but guess what, guys? Like, we're all going to die. Like, that's going to happen to all of us. And if you die suddenly and this business is a mess for your family, that's not a very good position to put them in while they're grieving. My dad died 3 days before I turned 27. So I know exactly what I'm talking about. I was going to dive into the sales CRM stuff. So if it's relevant now, okay, cool. So I'm just going to focus on one area that the buyers are going to ask you questions about so that you can start preparing. Now, there's at least 5 other areas that you're going to have to answer these questions for, but I'm going to focus specifically on how your sales CRM can help you to get answers for these questions. The first one is going to be your pipeline. Who do we have in the pipeline that we're going to close? And what are the different stages that they are in? So typically in the marketing agency world, you book the appointment, then there's like a discovery call, then there's a proposal that's created, then you put them into a pipeline stage for closing. Okay. And then you have then the last stages are either closed won where you got the deal or closed lost where you lost them. All right. That's typically how it goes with a marketing agency. I'm guessing that it's fairly similar for you guys if you're in different industries. The different stages might be a little bit different, but ultimately it's appointment set. And then the last one is going to be closed won or closed lost. Like, there's really not, the middle will vary a little bit, but like the start and the end are typically the same. Okay. They're going to want to see everybody who's in the pipeline. And guess what? If that pipeline is like stagnant, or if it's empty and you don't have a lot of prospects, they're going to lower their offer. They're not going to give you a good offer. They want to see that if they were to buy this business, that there's already trajectory in place so that you can continue to grow that business. Because they're not going to buy it just so that they can keep running it the same way. They want to buy that business and they want to grow it. They want to have more clients, more profitability, right? All that. Like, I don't think that you guys would want to hand somebody a check for $10 million and be like, okay, cool. Like, I'm cool making my 6% a year, like, growth. No, hell no. You get into business to make a lot more money. Okay. So you're going to have a list of every single person in your pipeline, where they're at in the deal stages. Okay. So that's number one. This is not in any order, by the way. The next thing is they're going to want to see your sales cycle. So how long does it take you to go from appointment booked to closed won? They're going to want to see that data. That you can do inside of high level. Well, actually, the pipeline and all of these things you can do in high level. If you don't know that data, it's going to hurt you. You have to know. Think about it this way. Let's say that your earnout, you have a $5 million earnout. And one of the things that you're saying in the deal is like, okay, our sales cycle was 45 days historically, but in the last 3 months, it's gone down to 14. Maybe they put in the earnout. Okay, cool. Like, we'll give you another $2 million if we can keep that sales cycle down to 14 days. Guess what? You better know your numbers, because there's millions of dollars on the line. So they will absolutely look at the sales cycle and how long it takes for you to create an appointment and turn that appointment into a paying customer. Next one, this is a bigger one, your sales/revenue projections. So they're going to look at what you're forecasting for the remainder of the calendar year, and then at least 2 years out, with a big emphasis on this calendar year and next calendar year. Okay, it's really, really important. Here's something that nobody thinks about. We start the conversation with a potential buyer. They sign the NDA, we give them the SIM. The SIM has our projections in it. They say, okay, this is interesting. We want to do a management meeting, and then we want all these other things. We want to see the forecast month by month. Okay, we want to see your pro forma. As they're getting this information and reading through it and having conversations, like, there's time passing. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, we're in July 2025 right now. Let's say you meet somebody on July 1st and they're interested, and you give them their forecast. And the forecast says that we are going to do $250,000 in revenue in July of 2025. As they're sitting and waiting and negotiating and talking with us and now it's August 1st, and you have your financials completed, and July, you were forecasting 250, you came in at 225 or 200. What do you think that potential buyer is going to think about your abilities to forecast sales? Do you think their confidence level is going to go up, or do you think their confidence level is going to go down?
It's going to go down.
It's going to go down. It's going to go down. So it's like, hey, you can't even hit your forecast for 1 month. How am I going to trust that you're going to be able to hit these numbers for the rest of the year? And they're going to walk away, or they're going to decrease what they want to pay you. So when you're doing your projections, you have to be very realistic. And while you're in the selling process, you have to make damn sure that you're hitting those projections every single month. Once they hand you the LOI, it's usually a 90-day due diligence process. You have to hit those numbers every single month during the due diligence process. While you're running the company, you have to hit these numbers, because there's all these other things going on in the buying process, or the selling process, I should say. So you're working a lot during that process, and you have to hit those numbers. You have to hit those revenue projections. It's very, very important. All right. Next thing that they're going to ask for is upsells and new upsells versus new revenue. So the revenue that we're going to increase by in July, August, September, what percentage of that is upsells and what's new revenue? And then historically, I want to look backwards and say, okay, what percentage of our revenue, new revenue, came from upsells versus new client revenue? So you have to have all that data. Now, if you have a properly set up pipeline, then that's already in there, and it's really, really easy to pull the data. But if you don't, it's going to be a nightmare. You're going to have to go back through every single invoice and then write down, was that an upsell or was that a new client? Or was that monthly recurring revenue? Another big one that everybody will ask you is your customer acquisition cost, your CAC. They want to know, how much does it cost you to acquire a customer? By show of hands, does anybody know what that number is today? Other than me? Nope.
No.
More or less. So here's the easy way. If you're running ads, right? You run an ad. Let's say you spend $1,000 on ads. You get 10 new customers. What is your customer acquisition cost?
$100.
$100 CAC. That's really, really good. So it gets more complicated when you're only doing like businesses by referral or whatever, but they're asking you this question because they want to know that there is a lead generation and marketing machine and sales machine that basically brings in new customers on demand. They want certainty. They want to know that if I buy this business and they have all these sales projections, they want to know, does this number exist and is it realistic? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that? Customer acquisition cost?
No, you made perfect sense to me.
Okay. Robert, you were looking a little confused, so I just wanted to see if you had a question about that. No? Oh.
No, this is good stuff. I'm writing it. I'm writing all this stuff down is what I'm doing.
Okay, cool. Good. One thing I will say is that like all these fancy terms and stuff, they're really not that hard to understand. In my opinion, I'm not a big conspiracy theorist, but I believe that all these terms that are around running a business and selling a business, they were created to make it seem more complicated and basically keep certain people out of it and in the dark. And so when you learn these terms, you're empowering yourself and you're recognizing that, hey, these things aren't crazy, like difficult concepts to understand. This isn't nuclear physics, guys. You just have to know the rules of the game. I can give an analogy. I don't know if there's any soccer players on the call, but like I've been a soccer player for 40 years. I remember the first time I understood the offsides rule and the offsides trap. I was like, whoa, that's amazing. But everybody else already knew that. So it's just one of those things. Like if you know the rules of the game, it's going to be way easier for you to make good decisions. I got Mustafa's attention with the offsides analogy.
Absolutely. I played soccer or football for like 10 years.
Okay.
And that offside trap that's just diabolical.
I mean, if you know what it is, you use it to your advantage. And also, if you're on the offensive side, you learn how to beat the trap. And it's really just about timing. And then if you can beat the trap, then you have breakaways every single time. Lead generation. So they want to know, how do you generate leads and the different buckets where you're generating those leads. So if you're generating all of your leads from one source, while that might be consistent and it's easier to manage, it's actually dangerous. Why?
Because if you lose that source, you lose your revenue.
Exactly.
Same reason our previous digital marketing agency had difficulties, because we got off from speaking, and COVID hit, and you no longer spoke at conferences.
Speaking dries up. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can come back from that, but it's definitely better to have multiple sources of leads. Now, you don't need 50 sources of leads that are generating 2% of your lead flow each month. 3 to 5 consistent lead sources is good, but they want to know where it's coming from, and they want to know the data. Where is it coming from? What are the close rates with those different sources? Is there a different customer acquisition cost with those different sources? Like, you just have to have those answers. And then the last one that I have is your close rate. So what percentage are you closing? This is very, very important. It's one of the most basic data points that you can get from a CRM. So if I have prospects in my pipeline, and let's say there's 10 prospects in my pipeline that I'm forecasting that I'm going to close this month, what percentage of those am I going to close? 30%, back in my corporate sales days, 30%, and you're in the Hall of Fame. Anything less than 10%, 10% or less, and you're on the unemployment line. So average people are 20%. I was a rock star. I was over 30%. But yeah, those numbers are very, very important. So you can see, like, a lot of it is data driven, right? That's like my whole facts, not feelings, which is the name of my book. Just so you know. The business is going to be valued based on facts and not feelings.
You're not going to drop a link to where you can buy it in there?
You can buy it on Amazon. I'll give you
it's Prime Day too.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah, today's Prime Day.
Does that mean that I have a special on my book? I might go the opposite and charge double. Just kidding.
Mark it up to mark it down.
No, I can give you guys a free PDF copy if you want. We can do that at the end. So all the ways, like, this is just the sales side of it. There's more of the general finances. They're going to look at team. Like, everything is going to be measured based on facts and not feelings. And one of the reasons why you're not going to sell your company, or why people don't sell their company, is because the buyer feels like their company is worth more than it really is. And so if you feel like your company's worth 10 million, they're like, the most I can give you is 5, the deal's probably not going to happen, unless there's a desperate situation or something bad happens, okay? And so that's why, if you know the language of selling your company, then you can go back and say, don't tell me it's 5. I know that the multiple for a company of my size is 6x, and I have 2 million in EBITDA. So, 12 million is average. And then they'll be like, oh shit, this guy knows what he's talking about. Like, I picked the wrong person to mess with. And then they pay you 13. Right. So yeah, now you guys have no excuse not to know these numbers. That's it. That's all I got for you. So now I can just do Q&A, or you guys can ask me ask me anything else that you want. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have, when you were mentioning metrics, there are 2 more metrics that I've come across, not from business sellers or buyers, but from business owners. So I just wanted to understand how important are these. The first one is the speed to lead. So when a lead is entered within the system, how much time it takes to close in them. Now, does that metric, is that related to the value of the business, or is that just related to the optimization of the business?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I would say that that's part of the lead generation question of where your lead sources are, what your lead sources are. So for example, like, if you're doing a lot of Facebook ads and they're going to a lead form, and then somebody has to follow up and book the appointment, that's where, if I was the buyer and I'm a sophisticated buyer, I'm going to say, okay, cool. Like, what's the speed to lead on there? Like, how long is it taking you to get that person booked for an appointment or get them on a call? So that would come up, that's kind of like I'm going to poke holes in what's going on and just see if it holds water type of question. So it's better to have that information than not have it.
And the second metric is, I think that would be really important to the buyer, would be the churn rate.
Churn rate is actually in a different category. So churn rate is absolutely 100% asked. They will absolutely look at the churn rate. To me, that's an indicator of how good the product is. So in digital marketing, there's a lot of bad marketing agencies out there that don't get results for clients, and they promise the world and they can't deliver. And so their churn rates are going to be higher. So if you, and in marketing, like your churn rate should be 3% or less per month. So if it's higher than that, I'm going to look in your product and be like, okay, well, why are these people canceling? You might have a good product. You might have a bad customer experience, and that's why other people are canceling too. Either of those lead to churn. There's a formula that you can also use if you have a monthly recurring revenue model. There's a formula that you can use to calculate how many months a person stays with you. You take the number 1 and you divide it by your churn rate as a decimal, and then that will give you the number of months that a client stays with you. So if your churn rate is 5%, you would take the number 1 divided by 0.05. That gives you 20 months that a client stays with you. Now let's compare that with what it should be is 3%. You go 1 divided by 0.03, and that gives you 33.33333 months. So would you rather have a client that stays with you for 20 months or 33.3333 months?
Absolutely, 33 months.
Absolutely. And so all you got to do, honestly, like when you look at it, just do a better job of serving your clients. That's all we got to do. Isn't that what we should be striving for anyways? We should always be striving to provide the best service for our clients possible so they see us as invaluable and they never leave.
Yeah, so if we speak on that, then that means the type of people that we choose to work with. I mean, as a marketing agency, we can choose to work with everyone. But if
Correct.
we select the people whom we want to work with so that our churn rate is down, our speed to lead is high, and all of our other metrics are like in positive numbers, that really matters a lot as well.
100%. I'll say something a little controversial too. Don't work with broke ass people. They are the most unappreciative on earth. Those little guys that are down to their last $5 and they need you to turn that into 50,000 or they're going to go out of business. Screw them. They made a bunch of bad decisions before coming to you. Don't work with them.
And that's true for any industry.
Any industry.
Any industry. Yep. They're looking to you to somehow save the ship, and it's too late.
Oh, it ain't going to happen. I ain't here to save anybody. My business, we take people that are doing very well and we help them to become great. That's who I want to work with. And we get amazing results for our clients. So I would encourage you to do the same. Cool. Any questions?
I just had, you said you were working with one that had a death in the family, and see if you want to take just a few seconds to talk about the importance of a buy-sell agreement.
Yes. So that's not my area of expertise. Actually, that's Alan's area of expertise. But essentially, a buy-sell agreement is something that you have in your operating agreement, I believe. And it's essentially like what happens if one of the persons dies or one of the people want to be bought out and something like that. In the past, we've taken equity in some agencies and we put in there that there's a provision so that either of us can ask to buy out the other one at the end of the first year, at the end of the third year, and then we list out the terms and like what the company would be valued at the time. So those are other things that you can put in that buy-sell agreement. It is very, very important that you have something, because that's like one of those things that you never, like divorce is another thing. Like you never think about that and you never like expect that to happen, but shit happens, and that's where it's like, if your whole philosophy is if it's only a problem when it becomes a problem, then you're going to get bit in the butt a lot and it's going to hurt and your butt's going to look like hamburger meat. So just plan for it. That's our responsibility as business owner. I know that most of us get into it because we love doing the work. We're passionate about it. We don't want to go work for somebody else. We start making checks and da-da-da-da. But your responsibilities as a CEO are to think about all the risks that you have in the company and to address those non-fun parts of running a business. That's the role that you assume as the owner. Nobody else is going to do that. You have to get that stuff done. And on the flip side, you carry the most amount of risk. So if anybody's going to get hurt by a divorce or a death in the family, it's going to be you. You're the one who carries all that liability. So kind of got to put our big boy pants on and deal with that stuff, even though it's not fun.
And the only other thing I wanted to mention is we've heard Chris mention go high level several times. And just anybody that doesn't know that OPM Tools uses a high level as the core software, and it's been highly customized for like the labor industry with lots of automations for the labor industry, and then we also service some other niches. But
Yep.
We are
Yep.
talking about the same core software.
One of the things that I loved about Go High Level is the affordability. Like HubSpot is like, I don't know, I want to say it's like $2,000 a month or something like that. Keep used to be like $1,000 a month, and I had that when it was called Infusionsoft.
Infusionsoft, yeah.
Of course, there's Salesforce, which they work with enterprise companies, and that can be millions and millions of dollars a month.
Entreport. I mean, there has been a bunch of them.
There's a ton of them, and it's like High Level was a software that I feel like they really figured out what your small business being like under 500 employees, needed to have all the data and to be able to make really, really good decisions. Mm-hmm. And that's really what it comes down to. It's like, if you have better data and information and you know how to make decisions based on the data, you're going to win. Like your probability for success goes up when you have better information. And I love the way that High Level makes that easy for us normal people. We can do it pretty easily.
I did want to touch on a couple of things that you brought up and actually show how they can actually use it inside the software as well. Is that okay? Or do you have a couple more things? So a couple things he's brought up is, like Mr. Powell said, it's the same exact software. So you're seeing the same thing. I'm going to show a little bit on our side of things, just so you have a good idea of what to expect. This is what he was talking about with the pipelines. The nice thing is you can actually break it down to whatever stages that you need to categorize where you're trying to get at and where they're at on those stages as well. And what he was talking about, where you can actually track where these people came from. Here, for example, we just closed this one yesterday, and I could see that this person was created on July 1st. So it took roughly a couple of weeks. Less than a week.
1 week. Yeah, that was a quick.
That was a quick.
That was a good one. That is not always the case.
Yeah, it's not always the case, but that was a good one.
That's the way it is with all of our clients. Yes, of course.
That's what I was wondering. It's like, wow, that was fast. And then the nice thing is you could put an opportunity value as well, where you're able to track how much money is coming in from those leads as well. And then if you want to do a whole picture view, now you can actually see you brought in this many clients and it brought in this many sales. So for example, one thing that we did for staffing agencies, well, you have a 720-hour buyout period. You do however much the hourly wage is for that employee and how many employees they have. And using that number can give you a value right there. You don't have to use that. That's just one example of how you can get that value of that opportunity in that case. And the best part is,
something to Chris's point is we could build in automation that when it actually goes to services sold, if we calculated our churn rate, we could change that number to that multiple.
That is true. Yeah, very much so. So you can have
a real number that somebody would want to see if they were ever looking at your company.
Exactly. So whenever they sign the proposal, it will automatically change it to the number that they signed off on. So that's one way to do it. So you could always have just an average value before until you get to service sold, and then it automatically changes to the correct value it needs to be. So a great example. The other part is if you have multiple sources that they're coming from, this is one way to do it. You don't have to do it this way. You can actually break it down into multiple pipelines. So I know, for example, Terrence, if he's still here, he does email marketing inside the software. So you're able to track where those leads come from, put it into their own opportunity board, and then focus is like, hey, where are they at in the pipeline? We do the same concept as well for us. So for example, we just did one for credit unions lately.
We optimized that too, by the way, Oren.
Awesome. So in this case, we've put in this value. Everything starts at 247 because that's our lowest product that we're offering to these people. And we're actually able to see from cold lead, contacted, open, click, replied, all the way to hot lead, booked appointment, proposal sent, and then most importantly, service sold. We just started this campaign anyway, so hopefully we're going to get some great results on that. But that's a great example of how you could break it down through the pipeline. And in this case with Chris, show it to a future buyer. It's like, hey, we're actually seeing it from beginning to end on sales.
Especially if you had 2-3 years of track record.
I know some of you guys don't actually use this part, but he was mentioning a lot about the financial side of things, the sales cycle, sales revenue, stuff like that. All that could be done inside the software as well. You don't, and it will pull that data for you. So for example, here's some data that we have inside of our software. The nice thing is there's this little download button that will allow you to pull all that data into an Excel sheet. And the nice thing about this is I can actually break it down by product items or by the client that bought that product specifically. So if I wanted to do this, sort, now I can actually see where is our money coming from, who's purchasing what, and how much is bringing in for each one of our services. So that's another way that you could use the same tactics that Chris has been talking about right here inside the software. The other thing is the contract section, being able to send out contracts through the software and be able to bring it back into you. He was mentioning the NDAs earlier. That's something you can actually do inside the software or any type of contract, to be honest. And you can actually build automation on top of this. Now, the last thing I wanted to show based off this information is, two more things, just to give you a rough idea. When we went to the pipeline, let's go to opportunity. That's what I'm looking for. One thing that Mr. Powell was mentioning is on these pipeline stages, you don't have to manually do that inside of here. You can actually have this automated inside the software for you. We actually built something very similar. So if I go into, let's say, the credit union one, we actually broke it down into different sections. As soon as someone gets contacted, it will automatically move it to the next stage. As soon as someone opens that email, it automatically moves it to the next stage. When someone clicks on the email, we want to look at that. We can actually see all these different triggers that happens. And if it has that specific tag, it automatically moves it to the next stage, and so on and so forth. So you can literally automate the whole process from the moment that you actually add into the system to the point where they either won or lost that client or potential client. The last thing I want to show that Chris mentioned is tracking your data, facts, not feelings. I mean, that's pretty much how you run a business. And there's plenty of ways of how to do that. One thing that I truly love is the reporting system right here. So if I go into reporting and then go to agent report, now I'm able to track everyone on my team and see what they're doing with the opportunities. How many opportunities have been added to the section during this time period? How many have been open? How many have been won? How many have been lost? You can also see the data behind it. How many emails, text message, all this data is very important for how to run your business. If you're starting to see a pattern that if you send more emails, send more text messages, make more phone calls, causing you to have more sales, well, now you have a trend that you can look at. Same thing when you get to the dashboard as well. You're able to see that data by going, and by the way, this is all customizable. So we changed ours out a little bit. I know there's a specific design that you guys have. If you look at our numbers, it's not as good as what Chris said. So I probably need to either update it to make sure it's working properly or fire myself, I guess.
We'll give you 60 days.
60 days. Sounds good. I appreciate that.
Put you on a performance improvement plan.
But the other thing that you could show on your dashboard is where the sources are coming from, whether it came from an email, whether it came from a bandit sign, whether it came from those door hangers or a phone call, whatever it might be, or a networking event or your dirty 30s. Now you're able to track it by putting the source and seeing which ones were open, which one were lost, and how much of a percentage was a win percentage, I guess you could say. But yeah, I just wanted to show that.
Hey, Oren, I want to
Yes.
mention one more thing that Chris didn't mention, but he talked about a lot at the conference, are company SOPs, and you can actually integrate your SOPs right into this software, and things come in as tickets, and then they move along until they're completed, and they get sent to whomever in the company based on what the ticket is. And hey, Chris, do you mind mentioning for just a few seconds how important buyers look at your internal SOPs?
Yeah, I didn't even know that Go High Level could do this. So I'm going to have to talk to you guys about integrating this. We have a whole other system that we use for that.
Oh, really?
Which, maybe you can save us a little bit of money. So in terms of the SOPs of the business, my very first W-2 job ever was working at Chuck E. Cheese. Has anybody here ever been to Chuck E. Cheese before? I think all of us have at one point in time. They had the most, I heard about that.
Yeah.
They had the most amazing processes. Everything was documented. So me as a dumb 17-year-old kid, they gave me a training program. I went through the training program, and they had documentation for how to do everything, how to greet the customers, how to answer the phone. I still remember how to answer the phone at Chuck E. Cheese. Anybody want to hear it?
Sure.
So ring, ring, ring. Hi, we're making magic at Chuck E. Cheese, Torrance location. How can I help you? They had you answer the phone like that every single time. And so think about it like when you're selling your business, you're handing them over the playbook so that the business can run when you're gone. And so it's very, very important that you have everything documented. The more documentation that you have, the better it's going to be. It gives that buyer a sense of certainty that everything's going to go well once the transaction is complete. So that's great. If you can do that in high level, that's awesome. I'd love to see that.
I'd love to show you sometime soon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll show a little bit of it.
Okay.
So basically what we offer, what you could do, I mean, anyone could do this if you have the software, by the way, is there's a section called memberships and there's products. So basically, instead of treating it as a course to offer as a sales process or something, you could actually use it for your SOPs as well. So for example, here's one that we made for my team on how to do pay-per-click, the whole process from research and planning, campaign creation, tracking and launch, performance review. You literally could break it down to all this different solutions and then include a video to go with it. So that way they not only have the verbiage, the content, but also a video to go with it to follow along as well. Same thing for, I believe we have internal SOP for what marketing proposal to use for certain situations. This one's a little bit shorter, but it works just as well because, I mean, Mustafa, he's never done sales before until recently, and he actually followed this instructions and actually made a sale with one of our newer clients just because he did this. So that's a great example right there. And you just build as many as you need, and then you just give access to team members, and now they have access to whatever SOPs they need to know, whether it's how to answer the phone call, how to input data, how to do your dirty 30s, how to, whatever it might be in this case.
And Chris, so in other words, you do the SOPs as trainings, and then on the actual opportunity board, you can move, that's when you're training somebody or training how to do it, or you can look up how to do things. And then on the opportunity board, then you can actually move tickets along internally as well as the sales cycle externally for clients.
So for for some of our clients that are on the call, this might be a great example. And this is why we ask you guys to email support at OverPower Marketing or use the support desk. As soon as you do it, it automatically goes to our opportunity board, going to the open section. It looks like we already have two that we need to move over, Arizona territory map and lead connector connection. Trying to get those assigned, in process, pending. And then the nice thing is it also creates a ticket for us as well, which includes a ticket number. Where did it go? Some of these are a little bit older. So yeah, support ticket number as well, which is automatically emailed to you so you could keep track. So that way, if you ever have any questions like, hey, can you tell me the update on this ticket? The ticket number is this, and we could easily find it for you and then give you a result of what's going on. So that's just a perfect example of why you're able to keep track of tickets. And then you can also track to see who's using those tickets as well. And I'm bringing this up because this is a great example for some of the staffing industry, because you could also use it for your potential clients whenever they need FPMs, where they're at in the process. Are you still trying to find that person, FTM, for their positions? Do they have all the materials? Did they pass their background check? Did they get through A, B, C, D, all the way to boots on the floor? They're already starting to work for that client. So you can use the same process.
With as many tags as you want, whether it be flaggers or it was whatever. So you could literally track it all that way. But
yeah, we have a pipeline for the exits that we do. We use Go High Level to track all the prospective buyers for our exits.
That's a great example.
Our agencies that we sell. Yeah, it's really neat.
And my favorite part is I could always track, like, let's say, if I just want to see Cohen's and see where he's at on specific tasks. Well, it looks like there's a couple things that are still in process, 8 things he still needs to work on, but the rest are closed. So that's a great example for me to actually track my team as well on where they at on certain tasks that they need to do.
You notice he didn't pull me up, Chris.
They'd be all assigned, open, never looked at. No, I'm just kidding.
Half kidding.
I'm happy.
I'm going to have to jump in 2 minutes, guys. So I don't know if there were any final questions for me, but I just wanted to make sure that I could answer anything.
Anything else, guys?
I
No,
do want to
the
give you guys.
presentation was great, Chris. I mean, kind of opened my eyes a little bit. Sometimes in sales, we get kind of stuck in a little bit of tunnel vision. So it kind of
Yes.
just broadened that, and I'm really eager to read your book.
Awesome.
You know,
So
I love the title.
I want to give you guys that. So just go to factsnotfeelingsbook.com and you can get a free PDF download of the book. And if you want, you can go on Amazon and buy it too. Facts Not Feelings book in just put it in Amazon and it'll pop up. But yeah, if you just want the PDF copy, you can just go to factsnotfeelingsbook.com and get a free PDF copy.
Here you guys go.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Chris, so much for hopping on and
Thanks for having
teaching
me.
us a lot of information. We really do appreciate it. Thank you guys for hopping on, and we'll talk to you soon.